The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick, your host from Firearm Mentor and Stress to Logic. First of all, Firearm Mentor is the division of my company. My company's name is the Melnick Conglomerate that focuses on safety training with firearms. So I teach private lessons. I have done advanced classes, although typically now I will refer to another fantastic instructor. And I do concealed carry, both initial and renewal certifications. The classes are typically in the northwest suburbs, but about 60% of the concealed carry classes that I teach are actually somebody calling me saying, hey, I've got 4 or 6 or 12 or 14 people, and I'd love for you to come to our house to do the concealed carry class. The majority of my concealed carry certifications are with private parties. Also, sometimes there would be an individual who says, look, I don't want to be in a class with other people. It's no one else's business that I own a firearm. So I would like to do a private class with you. And that's what we're talking about, is private classes. The way a private class works with my company is I need a 4-person minimum or $840 for an individual. Now, I've done some price shopping. A lot of ranges charge in the area of $1,000 to do the exact same thing. So I'm a little bit less than that, and of course it's $210 per person, and just because there's an $840 minimum doesn't mean you can have 8 people for $840. It's $210 per person. 4-person minimum comes out to $840. The other division of my company is called Stress 2 Logic. That website is stress2logic.com. The first website is firearmmentor.com. And I separated this out as a second DBA. It's the same company, it's just a different wing or different division. And the reason I did that is because oftentimes I am dealing with corporations or conferences who are booking speakers for non-firearm training. And that is also what I do. And they see the Firearm Mentor moniker or email, and they get freaked out because they don't know or they don't understand or they don't like firearms. I am speaking at a variety of conferences. And sometimes the people that book my speaking, they want nothing to do with firearms, like I just said. So for my own house of worship, I happen to be the active shooter response instructor. I do this every year, a couple times a year with them. And we go into the sanctuary and we'll set up the various scenarios, and it helps people understand what will happen in the face of an active attacker, active shooter. And I also focus on that it's not always a firearm, but there's people at this house of worship who are very anti-gun. Now that they got to know me, they're like, oh, okay, we know who you are. You're not some crazy dude. I've also done speaking within the elderly services community on managing agitated people, managing agitated patients. Once was for ElderWorks, once was for Gidwits. And I love that group, but a lot of them are not politically aligned with the Second Amendment, which is, again, perfectly fine. I've also done training at a senior center. This was active shooter response training, as well as managing violent people, managing agitated people. These people are not necessarily pro-gun. I did not mention my firearms business, and interestingly enough, a couple people came up to me afterwards. I guess they had Googled me and said, hey, I need a concealed carry permit. So very interesting. I was like, you Googled me. Cool. I've done speaking at the National Alliance for Mental Illness, which I actually am speaking at the state conference coming up in October. If you'd like information on that, that is an organization that provides resources for families and professionals who have to deal with individuals who have a psychological diagnosis. I'm going to be speaking at that national conference. I've spoken to the Lake County chapter. I've also gone to various networking groups. Cup of Joe is one. Jewish Networking Organization is another. Stars and Stripes Networking Group, International Association of Business Communicators, Northbrook Retirement Club. Actually, it's Seniors Enjoying Life. I have to make that change. And I've done MC work for a Jewish group doing trivia. And so if you need a speaker who's well-versed, not afraid to get up in front of people, really smooth, has adversity, I actually also have a TED Talk, maybe having another one coming up, which I'll share with everyone. It's in the idea/planning stages, and that would be in Northbrook, Illinois. Folks, mark your calendars because I've got some events coming up that I would love to share with you. First of all, my next concealed carry class will be on August 24th and 25th in the Northwest suburbs. You can sign up at firearmmentor.com/classes. And I have planned out once a month my public-facing concealed carry classes throughout the end of the year. That is not yet published on my website. I imagine it will be on the website in the next week or two, as my web person will put it up. If you're interested in, have a question and want to know what those dates, September, October, November, December are, throw me a message. My electronic business card is marcusmelnick.com. That is marcusmelnick.com. And there are a couple of other dates that I want to go over. If you love outdoor festivals, outdoor fairs, the Labor Day weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Buffalo Grove Days in Buffalo Grove, Illinois, has it's a carnival. There's great food there. They've done food trucks in the past. I know some of the food vendors because I frequent them often. And just delicious, delicious food, great music. But during the day, Saturday, Sunday of Labor Day weekend from 11 to 7 and Sunday from noon to 4, there is a local business fair, local business vendor expo, and I will have a table there. I'm going to have a plethora of prizes, including things like firearm cleaning brushes, pencil holders that look like firearm cylinders for revolvers, as well as some keychains, some binder clips. I've got a ton of some candy. Who can't have candy? Ton of different prizes. I'll have a wheel. You can spin the wheel. Please come by. Say hi. Tell me you're a fan of the show. Tell me you have a concealed carry permit. The prizes are for those 21 and older. And look, it's a pencil holder. It's 3D printed. It's not a big deal, but it's in the shape of a part of a gun. I just don't want to get in trouble with the parents or the village. So in order to get the prizes, you have to be 21 or over. If you are a child and you're with your parent can spin it. They can get the prize and they can give it to you if you are under 21. I have no problem with that. But as far as people participating, it's a 21 and over type business. So I apologize if that is disappointing to anyone, but at the same time, I want everyone to be safe. Some other upcoming events that you could go to. On Friday, August 23rd, I will be speaking at the Midwest Security Police Conference and Expo. That is MSPCE. I've been going to this conference for 25 plus years. It is a great conference. It is free in Tinley Park. If you would like information on attending, you can also reach out to me on my electronic business card, which is marcusmelnick.com. I would love to see you there. I'd love to see you in one of the seminars. The one that I'm teaching there is same as the title of my book, Overcoming the Hot Stress Mess. And I have several other speaking events coming up in the fall, including, as I mentioned, the National Alliance for Mental Illness Illinois annual conference that's also in Tinley Park. That'll be in October. And I've got a ton of speaking engagements in between then. The weekend before Thanksgiving is November 15th, 16th, 17th. I will be participating in the APCA, which is a college planning expo in Lincolnshire. I'll have a table. I'll be speaking there. And I'm also working on a paid for training video program. I have not uploaded any yet. I've signed up for the program where this is going to be distributed worldwide. So I will probably have something like a multiple short TikTok-ish 3-minute video series on various tips and tricks for using firearms. With that said, let me talk about some things that have happened in the news. We all have heard and seen all sorts of theories, conspiracy theories, etc., on the Trump assassination. Now, there's going to be information that's coming out at some point in the future, but the reality is I'm not going to criticize anyone individually. I will say that the Secret Service and local law enforcement had some failures. Who failed, I don't know. It's very difficult to Monday morning quarterback this, but just so that everyone knows, I truly believe that there is a lack of something in law enforcement. And I love law enforcement. I mean, police work was great. I wanted to grow up and be in criminal justice, and I was since 1988. So I have a love for criminal justice, but I also have a love for safety. And people make mistakes. Was it coordinated? Who knows? Did the Secret Service do something to encourage the shooter? Who knows? Obviously not publicly, not on purpose, but maybe there was a lack of security. There obviously was a lack of security. I thought that President Biden, when he came on to speak about the political violence, he was spot on. It was one of the first times in a long time that I've seen him coherent, understandable, and he was very anti-violence, and I have to respect that. I absolutely loved his speech, and nobody wants us to have political violence. Political violence is absolutely disgusting, but it happens more times in other countries than it happens in the United States. So I'm not pinpointing blame on anyone. Crime is out there, and a lot of times police are the solution to crime, not the cause of it. Just like doctors are the solution to disease or injury. They don't cause the injury, they're part of the solution. Now, in the case of executive protection, there's a lot of prevention that goes into it. So specifically, those involved in executive protection. And I've had a little bit, not a lot, a little bit of training, a little bit of exposure to it in my law enforcement days. It's quite interesting. It's much different than any other security or perimeter security or facility security. So somebody messed up. Before we jump into some news that has occurred in the last few weeks, I'd really like to remind everyone that when they hear things from people who work in the gun industry to verify. I'm always appreciative yet skeptical. So I was at a gun store dealing with a salesperson. I really, really liked the guy. Really neat guy, cool guy. And he told me, this is the second time he's given me incorrect information. He told me that Smith & Wesson is discontinuing the 9mm Smith & Wesson EZ. Well, my BS alert radar went off because that's their flagship product. Why would they discontinue their flagship product? So I thanked him for the information. I called Smith & Wesson. They didn't know what I was talking about. There is no discontinuing of the Smith & Wesson 9mm EZ handgun. I did learn, though, that the Performance Center version of it is being discontinued. I don't know if he misread something, but you always have to verify that what you are told is the truth. Let's talk about news. So I like to go through some articles that I read, and I'll call baloney on them. And there's an article I saw on MSN that says gun sales plummet, why Americans aren't buying as many guns anymore. And I'm kidding when I say this. It's because we've already bought them all. That was a joke. Hopefully you're laughing. No. Now, this article goes on to say that this is an unexpected trend, and as the United States gears up for the election, there's a surprising lack of sales, with gun sales falling. Presidential elections and firearm sales surge, typically in those years with a presidential race. You've got on the Democrat side people saying we're going to ban guns. In the Republican side, you've got people saying it's going to be a free-for-all. Either way produces panic buying of both firearms and ammunition. So I always recommend to people to stock up on ammunition on non-election years. So Americans bought fewer guns this May than any other May in the past 5 years, and the new analysis of gun sales revealed a surprising downturn in firearm purchases that began at the start of 2024. Now, I'm only partway into the article, but in reality, the pandemic and all of the civil unrest, that is what spurred a little bit of a spike in firearm and ammunition sales, and this might be the market returning to normal. Just saying. FBI background checks reveal the sales downturn. That's what they're basing it on. And it's basically had a month-over-month slide since March, with May seeing 400,000 fewer checks compared to April 2024. So what does this mean? Well, maybe prices will come down. Now, really, prices aren't going to come down right away because the gun stores have already bought the guns at whatever price they're getting them at. So they will have to liquidate their current stock before they get guns that are less expensive. So you might see a little bit less price break in the near future.
I want my listeners to know that this is my dream, teaching people about safety. If it weren't for you, if it weren't for my listeners, I couldn't live my dream. So on behalf of my family and myself, I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to live my dream. And I also want to continue to live my dream, and I'm excited to continue to spread the word of safety. Recently, I began a new service as a conference keynote speaker. So if anyone would like for me to speak at future events, or if anyone knows of an introduction or would like to discuss how we can work with one another, I'd love to do just that. The keynote speaking website is www.stress2logic.com. That is STRESS2logic.com. If you're aware of any conference speaking engagements where you'd like to have me speak, I'd love an introduction. You can always share my electronic business card, which is Marcus Melnick, MarcusMelnick.com. Now, back to the show.
In other news, there is an article out there, also on MSN, that says in 1 year, this rifle company makes enough guns to arm half the U.S. military. But I bet they're not sold in Illinois. Let's talk about this. So why does this matter? Well, firearm sales in the U.S. did hit historic highs during and right after the pandemic, and both directly and indirectly, the U.S. arms and ammunition industry generated over $90 billion in economic input in 2023. So anyone that thinks that this is an anomaly or gun owners are, quote, weird, which is what the left is now saying about the right, guess what? It's $90 billion is a lot of money when you're talking about the gross domestic product. Over 384,000 Americans, according to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, bought firearms in and prior to 2023. And in recent years, surging demand for firearms has been a boon for American gun makers. Stag Arms made also a little over 10,000 firearms rifles in 2022, which is again 0.33% of all U.S.-made rifles. Their most popular rifles are their Stag 15 and their Stag 10. That's an AR-15 and an AR-10. And they produce their rifles in both Washington and Wyoming. The total domestic firearm production in 2022 was 20,601, which is 52% of rifles. LWRC LWRC had over 13,000 rifles made in 2022. That's 0.4% of all rifles made in the U.S. And they are AR-15 type rifles made in Maryland. And the total domestic firearm production in 2022 was about 21,000 firearms. RWC Group made over 14,000 rifles in 2022. They are Kalashnikov AK-47 type rifles. They're made in Florida. And the total domestic firearm production in 2022 was 23,000 rifles, which is about 59% of all rifles in the United States. There's another company, I have not heard of this company before, called Riley Defense, 15,000 guns, rifles made in 2022, and they are also AK-47 type rifles. They are based in North Carolina. Great Lakes Firearms and Ammunition made 17,000 guns, rifles in 2022, and these are 223 Wilds, 450 Bushmasters, 350 Legends. They're based in Michigan. Then you've got Black Rain Ordnance. They've made 18,000 rifles in 2022. These are AR-15 type firearms. They're based in Missouri. Then you've got Outdoor Colors. Never heard of them. In 2022, they made 19,000 rifles. They're made in North Carolina. Heritage Manufacturing. Them I've heard of. I've heard of Heritage. They made 20,000 rifles in 2022. They have a Rancher carbine. They're made in Georgia. Colt, everybody knows Colt, has made 20,000 rifles in 2022. They are mostly AR-15 type rifles, and they're based in Connecticut. And IWI is the Israeli company that makes the Tavor. They made over 21,000 rifles in 2022, including a Galil Ace, the Zion 15, the Tavor, and they're based in Pennsylvania. Delton, 2022, made 24,000 rifles. They are AR-15 style, based in North Carolina. Bear Creek Arsenal, also in North Carolina, makes AR-15 type rifles. And in 2022, they made over 27,000 rifles. American Tactical Incorporated, or ATI, a lot of times they make clones of older guns, have made 32,000 rifles in 2022. They are also an AR-15 type rifle, have the Omni Hybrid Max, which I'd never get. I had one at one point, and I got rid of it because it was a Jam-O-Matic. We're talking before the 1994 assault weapons ban. That's how long ago I've owned it. FN America, great company. In 2022, they made 35,000 rifles, which is only 1% of all U.S.-made rifles. They have the FN-15, the FN SCAR, and they're based in South Carolina. Legacy Sports, in 2022, produced 41,000 rifles. They are based in Nevada. Century Arms, they are an importer, and they also make rifles. In 2022, they made over 43,000 rifles. They are AK-47 type, and they are based in Vermont. High Point, or Strassels Machine Incorporated, has made 45,000 firearms rifles in 2022, and they're based in Ohio. Remington Arms, or Rem Arms, made 48,000 rifles in 2022. They make things like sniper rifles, hunting rifles, the Model 700, the Model 783, and they're based in Georgia and New York. Keystone Sporting Arms in 2022 made 54,000 rifles, and they are based in Pennsylvania. TDJ Buyer produced 60,000 rifles in 2022. They're based in Utah. Then we've got Daniel Defense. They're a very expensive AR-15, great gun. In 2022, they made 61,000 rifles based in Georgia. Keltec, tons of innovative designs. In 2022, made 69,000 rifles, including things like the SU-16, the Sub-2000, and they are based in Florida. Mossberg, or Maverick Arms, same company. in 2022 produced 74,000 rifles, and they're based in Connecticut and Texas. Diamondback Firearms, 2022 produced 78,000 guns. Sorry, when I say guns, I'm talking about rifles in this area. DB10, DB9R, they are based in Florida. PSA, or Palmetto State Armory, in 2022 produced over 101,000 U.S.-made rifles, including things like an M4 carbine, PA-15, and they are based in South Carolina. Radical Firearms produced over 102,000 rifles in 2022. They're based in Texas. Smith & Wesson created over 130,000 rifles in 2022, a lot of AR-15 type rifles. Now they have a really cool 1854 lever action. They're based in Massachusetts and Maryland. Sig Sauer made over 144,000 rifles in 2022, AR-15 style and others. They're based in New Hampshire. Springfield, local to Illinois, Springfield Armory, Illinois, in 2022 made over 304,000 guns, including their Saint AR-15 M1A. They are based in our home state of Illinois. Henry Repeating Arms, this is the lever action, although now they have a semi-auto rifle, produced over 334,000 rifles in 2022. They're based in New Jersey and Wisconsin. Savage Arms, 2022, produced over 608,000 rifles. And these are hunting rifles mostly. They're based in Massachusetts. Ruger, 2022, they have a plethora of various rifles, including semi-autos, bolt action, all sorts of things. They produced over 694,000 rifles in 2022. One of the most popular rifles is a 22 caliber, which is a Ruger 1022. And they have production facilities in Arizona, Connecticut, New Hampshire, and North Carolina. So that's just a little temperature of what goes on in the rifle manufacturing industry. Stay tuned for the second half of the show, where we'll be exploring additional things that have happened in the media. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.